Lawyers are taking this very seriously. In fact, the palace.
And that's what everybody's been saying about him.
Let's get started with a video about our guest speaker. Let's roll the tape.
So we're looking at under 1 million and around, you say, less driven by normal, irrational behavior. Very soon, you'll be able to see Captain Planet, the movie. Public ceremony on Monday. There will be a public memorial.
We are the champions. No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And how cool to be introduced by Carol Tomei, right? I mean, how cool! She exemplifies everything we're going to speak about today. So thank you, Carol. And we're going to talk about her amazing body language. Did you see how open those hands were? I'm going to tell you why that's so powerful in a moment. But first, people ask me a lot of questions about my life. What is it like to stand up in front of an audience or be a broadcaster? What's it like to interview Richard Gere? And is George Clooney really so sexy? Meeting Nelson Mandela. But the question they ask me most, and this is around the world, before you stand up in front of a group of people, do you get? Yes. So because I am so fond of Home Depot, and I know you all so well, I'm going to share my secret, my antidote to nervousness. So I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. Now, you're nice and warmed up for this now. So I'm going to show you what I do. Please don't get a fright. So just watch, you don't have to do anything yet. I go to the back of the CNN newsroom. And right now I went to the back over here. When no one's looking at me, I go like this. 1, 2, 3, huh. Okay, now you're gonna do it. Nobody is watching you, I promise you. They're too busy looking at me, making a complete fool of myself. This is fabulous. You'll feel all the release of tension, so bear with me. No one's looking at you. And take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, huh, and 1, 2, 3, huh, and 1, 2, 3, huh. And don't you feel better already? That's great. It also works, by the way, if you're dealing with a particularly difficult customer. Instead of screaming at them, just go to the back. Huh. Yes, how can I help you? How many times have you felt like that? So it's about branding, which comes into self-promotion. Every single person in this room is a leader. And it comes down to your ability to persuade and influence.
Do we do it as well as we could? And I love what Emerald says, because he says you could be doing it well. But let's kick it up a notch.
So, is more of the way you come across to customers, to associates, to higher-ups, to colleagues, is it verbal, non-verbal, or both? You know those people you work with who just always look unhappy? You know? They just look like life sucks, work sucks. And it's not that their performance is bad. They manage to stack, they know what they're doing, they're very methodical, but they always look like they're in terrible pain. Is that verbal, non-verbal, or both? So I'm asking you to think about yourself. How you criticize somebody, or, you know, I love the term at Home Depot, we don't call it just criticism, we call it an area of... Exactly. What you say, how you say it, both. So when we think of your overall presence, as I'm saying this, think about yourself, but remember you're in this room in two capacities. You're here for yourself, but you influence others. Who do you work with that is sabotaging themselves, not because of their performance, but because of their demeanor, or the way they come across, or the way they speak to others? And how do you as a leader coach them through that? And by the way, one of the ways I found useful is to say to somebody, let's say Melody comes to me and says, why am I not getting promoted? I just don't understand. I'm just never getting promoted. I work so hard. I'm here for so many hours. And I say to her, Melody, I know how brilliant you are. I can see how smart you are, and I can see how hard you work. But what concerns me is that management doesn't always see it. So maybe if you ironed your shirt, or washed your hair occasionally, just those little things, maybe, you know, but the way to say it is kindly, I can see, because all of you in this room impact others. You know, Maya Angelou said it so beautifully. She said, if you get, give, and if you learn, teach. So what about this session today that you don't need, but you influence someone else who does, and you can see that they're sabotaging themselves because they're not aware of this. Nobody comes to work and says, today, let me do badly, let me suck, let me annoy everybody. No! Everyone wants to do their best, but we all know people who do that because they don't have awareness around very simple things. If you're feeling very nervous and somebody intimidating is coming into your store, go to the back, do not do this in front of them. Put your hands above your head and stand like this. It's a power pose, and apparently it increases testosterone, which makes you feel powerful, and it decreases cortisol. Try that. Probably not a good idea to do it when they walk in. Okay.
Why do people do business with you? There are other people who do what you do. But what about you says that is the person I want to be standing on that stage for my crew network event? What about you says I want you to be the person who negotiates my lease? Why is Alexander heading up the Wachovia lease division? Why him? Why does he get the job? Why do you do as much business as you do, and could you be doing more? So right now, if you were to say, when we think Oprah, certain words come to our minds. When people think you, what do you think comes to mind? We were so quick at Oprah. When people think you, what do you think comes to mind? What would you like to come to mind? And the question is, are you doing everything in your capability to ensure that what you would like people's perception of you to be and what their perception of you is congruent? But one of the things that I've done at CNN that I've enjoyed the most is that I've been an editorial producer. And what we do as editorial producers is we book guests, we book experts on specific topics. So remember that. If there's ever a real estate topic that you think you're a good expert for, I'm a good person to know. Now, I'm going to tell you how I use this in developing my brand. If somebody says to me, Nadia, what do you do? I'm a booker. That's what we call ourselves, bookers. Heard the term booker? We book guests. I'm a booker. My expertise is booking. Therefore, I book. I'm a booker in booking who books. So I often think it's like I'm a hooker in hooking who hooks. But really, what am I? How do you get creative with your brand statement? I'm an editorial producer in the bookings department at CNN. My expertise lies in finding the best possible guest to comment on any segment, particularly during breaking news. Do you all remember Tsunami Sunday? Tsunami Sunday, the 26th of December 2004, right? I got called at 6 o'clock in the morning, and my producer said to me, Nadia, I hope you don't mind, you're on call. There's been this sort of earthquake in Southeast Asia. So I reluctantly got up, got into CNN. I had never heard the word tsunami. Within 5 hours, I had booked 17 guests for CNN and CNN International. I had booked meteorologists and tsunami experts and people from CARE. That's what I do for CNN bookings. Does that tell you what I'm capable of? Is that more powerful than saying to you, I'm a booker in bookings who books? Again, all I ask you to ask yourself about dress is the way I am dressing congruent with the way I want to be perceived? On that note, I worked with a girl last week and she had a lot of cleavage. I was quite jealous, really. And a tiny little skirt, and she had very blonde hair. She said, you know, Nadia, my problem is I just don't get taken that seriously. And you know, I don't know what it is, but when I take a male client out, he thinks I'm hitting on him. I'm not joking. But I wanted to say again, we are dealing with a male-dominated industry, although that's going to change, I have no doubt. But the reality is, what are you doing about your physicality that says, I am a serious businesswoman? And I'm not saying reduce your femininity in any way, but that's a pretty obvious thing and something I don't want to dwell on too much with all of you because you get it. But I do ask you, do you feel like a 10 in everything you wear? And that's something to really think about and say, you know, the extraordinary thing about chains in America is you can go to Bloomingdale's and Dillard's and find a personal shopper. And sometimes it's worthwhile saying to somebody you trust, you know, do you think I always look good? Or is there something I could be doing? And every now and again, girls, and men, if you'd like to, ladies, illustrious women and gentlemen, go to the MAC counter Go to the MAC counter and get a really great makeover. Because you might find that there are one or two things that they do that just make you feel really good, and you can always go and buy one item. At the end of the day, it's enhancing the way you feel about yourself. Because if you feel good about yourself, you're going to project that. So if on a scale of 1 to 10, you do not feel 10 right now, or you do not at least feel 8, how many of you have had the dessert yet? I know. Just ask yourself, what could I be doing? What should I be doing? Because I know that it matters tremendously. I know that in that way people buy into my confidence. Okay, please can I have 2 volunteers? A volunteer and a volunteer. 2 volunteers. Tina and we have Jane. Okay, now Tina and Jane, to congratulate you for standing up, you get a copy of my book, The Little Book of Picnic. But wait, you also get a copy of Amy Henry, endorsed by Donald Trump, the last standing woman on The Apprentice, gutsy, ballsy woman who says when she was told by some guy, so how do you feel being the token woman? She said, well, how do you feel being the token bald guy? She said, this is quoting her, don't take crap from these men. She says, and just remember, there are ways to be very sophisticated without being sexy. And I'll tell you about that quickly. But in the meanwhile, you get her book, Amy Henry's book. Thank you. And then we give them a round of applause. Thank you. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is taking the action despite the fear. So please, in terms of working on your brand, developing your brand, say, what is stopping me really? And often it's the inner child, the 3-year-old that goes, if I approach that person and he doesn't deal with me in the way I would like, it's as if he doesn't want to play with me. But I'm a big girl now. I can dialogue with myself. Don't make assumptions. Don't take things personally. Things we all know, but we may forget to do. So what stops you in networking?
So yes, I know we have covered a lot of material in a very short amount of time. And I do want to tell you all, it is much harder to give a 30-minute talk than it is to give a 30-hour talk, because you have to say, what do I keep in and what do I keep out? So think about this for a moment. We've spoken a lot about presence, and presence is everything. It's your performance, it's your image, and your exposure. Critical to that is having the courage. Thinking about what is my attitude towards this, and am I allowing fear to sabotage me when it's only false evidence appearing real? Am I consolidating all my relationships in the way that I should? And am I taking the time to talk to the person next to me right here at this conference and continue a relationship with them? Because we don't know what the impact of that long term will be. So because we don't have time for feedback as such, I am going to ask you, when you get a moment, one thing you learned from today, to tweet me and say, @Nadia Bilchik, #takeaway, and one thing that was a takeaway for you from today, and then I'll put it all together and we can all share it. I'm so excited that at my age, I can actually say @Nadia Bilchik, #takeaway. But please, that will be so helpful. And please continue to be as incredible and wonderful as you are. And on that note, I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. And remember 2 things. Okay, number 1, Oscar Wilde said, you may as well like yourself because everyone else is already taken. And one more, Napoleon Hill said, the world has a way of making place for people who look like they know where they're going. And you all look like you know where you're going. So take a deep breath in. And 1, 2, 3, ha! Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Do you come across, is your brand as somebody who says, I'm here, I have a lot to offer, but I'm not desperate or needy or uncomfortable? That's far more attracting in networking. A sense of no one meeting is that critical. So I ask you to relax. And finally, I ask you to engage with energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. And make sure that every part of your brand is a firebrand. You want a firebrand because fire is warm and fire is engaging, which is why at the end of this talk, I decided to call myself the Firebrander. So, remember that perception is reality. that visibility is credibility, and that credibility leads to profitability. And finally, in congruence with Jason's quote this morning about doing, what we think or what we know or what we believe is in the end of little consequence. The only consequence is what we do. And finally, old Chinese proverb, he who wants milk cannot step into the pasture and hope that the cow backs up to him. Ladies, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So yes, I know we have covered a lot of material in a very short amount of time. So think about this for a moment. We've spoken a lot about presence, and presence is everything. It's your performance, it's your image, and your exposure. Critical to that is having the courage. Thinking about what is my attitude towards this, and am I allowing fear to sabotage me when it's only false evidence appearing real? Am I consolidating all my relationships in the way that I should? And am I taking the time to talk to the person next to me right here at this conference and continue a relationship with them? Because we don't know what the impact of that long term will be. And remember two things. Okay, number one, Oscar Wilde said you may as well like yourself because everyone else is already taken. And one more, Napoleon Hill said, the world has a way of making place for people who look like they know where they're going. And you all look like you know where you're going.